Hey, and welcome back to Embody Your Truth. This is the seventh and final lesson of the course. So today we are going to be talking about self-ownership. I love this. This is a term, I didn't create the term, but I started working with it out of something that just, I didn't feel quite right about self-acceptance. Self-acceptance didn't feel fitting for me anymore, and I want to explain why. So throughout my journey, I've kind of moved from self-animosity to self-awareness to self-acceptance, and now I feel like I'm kind of in this place of self-ownership. The difference between self-ownership and self-acceptance for me is one is kind of like breaking people into your truth. It's like, yeah, this is me. These are the things that I'm learning to accept about me. Here you go. And then self-ownership is like you're owning people into your truth. It's like, yeah, this is me. Like, welcome to the Matt show. This is who I am. This is my energy. Like, this is who I'm showing up as. Take it or leave it kind of approach. And I like that approach because it's not arrogance. It's just it's confidence, and it's being able to step into your authenticity, own your truth, and be who you are. Right? Self-ownership. So that's what today is going to be about. One thing that I want to make clear is that this is a journey, okay? This isn't a hop. We don't hop from self-animosity to self-ownership. There's the self-awareness and the self-acceptance phases that we have to go through as well. And the key is to own your journey at its own pace, okay? We don't want to rush our journey. We want to own where we are. And if we're at a place of self-animosity, that's okay, right? We're going to practice allowance for that. And we're going to allow ourselves to be at that place because there is something in our self-animosity that it's trying to teach us, right? And if we bypass, then we don't learn. And we get to self-acceptance and we're like, why am I not accepting myself? Why isn't it sticking? Well, because you didn't beat yourself up enough in the self-animosity stage, right? We need to get to a place where we're sick and tired of being sick and tired of having the thoughts that we're having, and then we can move into transforming them. So every stage of the journey is exactly as it is for a very divine purpose, and that purpose is only defined by you. All right, so that's going to be the first point I want to make about this. And so the second point is it's an intention to be more than just someone who accepts you. Okay, I have a story, and it's kind of a weird story, but you guys got to stick with me on this one. I had a client who was struggling with something about herself. She contracted herpes, and she was getting into a new relationship, and she was really fearful about telling her partner that she had herpes because she didn't have an outbreak, and she was worried that when the outbreak comes that she's going to have to tell him. And I think this is very common for a lot of people who have this because they're a reoccurring sexually transmitted infection, right? So what I said to her was, you don't want to break somebody into that truth. You want to own somebody into that truth. And that always stuck with me when I said that to her, because if you say to somebody like, yeah, you just start dating and you're like, ugh, yeah, I have herpes, versus, yeah, I have herpes. This is something that I deal with. I manage it. It's good, right? Like what we as people are little sheep. We're always being guided by other people, other people's, how they feel about themselves and how they represent themselves. We follow their lead, right? So when we're following somebody's lead of like, I don't know about myself, I don't feel confident in who I am, then we don't feel confident in who they are, right? So that's what this is about. It's about setting the intention that we can be more than just accepting of ourselves. We want to own ourselves. We want to be that beautiful energy of who we are, and we want to own that. Okay, so but again, it's gonna be a journey, but we can always see the vision of where we want to be, which is I want to own who I am. I want to be super confident in who I am, and that's the direction that I'm heading. Right? We don't have to think that we need to be there, and we don't need to fake it till we make it. We need to honor each stage of the journey by practicing allowance, and we'll eventually make our way to where we want to be. And it'll be solid, right? It'll stay. When we fake it till we make it, we're using our ego as a way of trying to cultivate this fake energy around what we're actually trying to cultivate. But sometimes it takes a little bit of time and practice to do that, right? So I wrote this down because this has kind of been my journey through the course of accepting myself and learning to love myself and becoming more authentic and aligned to who I am. So it's been about accepting my truth, owning my truth, embodying my truth, and living my truth. So as I've learned to accept my truth, I was able to make peace. That's what that stage represents for me. It's about making peace with the things that I don't like about myself. I learned to accept them, okay? And then ownership is I no longer lead with the things that I don't like about myself. I lead with the things I love about myself. And the things that I maybe don't like about myself or whatever, those come along with me still. I'm not rejecting them. I'm not saying, no, you can't come along with me. They come with me, but I choose to lead with the things that I love about myself, because that's what I want to do. I want to celebrate the things that I absolutely love about myself, and then it makes those other things not feel like you're rejecting them. They don't feel like things you don't like about yourself anymore. They feel like just part of you, right? And that's the embodiment of the truth that I speak about. And then ownership, own your truth is going to be all about, this is me, like this is who I am, this is who I'm going to show up as, and knowing that. And that for me has been about taking my journey from my head down into my heart and owning my energy, owning the beautiful energy inside my body that of who I am, and becoming more than just how I look or whatever, all the other superficial things we identify with to try and create identity, right? And then the next stage in the journey for me has been embodying my truth. So, and that's kind of similar, right? Embodiment. We move into the body, we embody who we are. So when I own who I am, I also have to be that. And when we own who we are, we become who we are, right? And that's the embodiment aspect. And then living it, right? We get to share in the embodiment with other people, and through connection and through experiences and through opportunities, and these sorts of things come in. So they're kind of all nice and lined up. And that's kind of how I've outlined myself. So the next bullet point here is let go of stories that tell you not to own who you are by surrendering your mind to your body. So again, I keep repeating myself, but it's so important to let go of identifying who you are with your mind. When we start to let go of those things, we no longer are operating within parameters. Right? And when there's parameters around us, we limit ourselves. We limit ourselves experiences, we limit ourselves opportunities. And when we let go of these parameters and we just let ourselves be, which is energy, the energy can flow out of me and do what it needs to do. It doesn't need to be contained within this egoic, mind-constructed frame of who I get to be, right? Then the stories start to release, the filters, the beliefs, all the things release that are keeping me stuck in this idea of who I need to be, which isn't in alignment with who I actually am, right? Which is the authentic energy that is expressing itself out of the core of who I am. And we do this by practicing inner gaze work, right? We're going to play with our inner gaze when we have the opportunity, and practice this. You can practice this when you're making a decision, or when something comes up, you have an experience. Instead of always, whenever you think about this, like when we have an experience and it's like, I'm going to contemplate this. We always go like that, right? We're always like, we send our attention upwards, right? Our inner gaze goes up, and we play around with that in our cognitive dialogue, in our minds, right? Our thinking. And what we want to do is we want to start to practice going downwards, connect with your intuition, right? This has a wisdom of its own, but it does not have a wisdom that's going to lead you to your truth and to your purpose, right? It leads you to problem solving, to reading books, to work, to school, to all those things, but it doesn't lead you to your truth per se. That's going to be down here. So play with your inner gaze, draw it downwards, connect to your intuition, and start to pay attention to the feelings you get, right? Usually the feeling when you're in your truth is going to be expansive. It's going to feel light and tingly and warm. And when you have things that aren't aligned to your truth, you're going to get constriction, and it's going to feel maybe cool or like a little bit of anxiety in your belly. And follow that, because that's really the truth of who you are, and that's going to guide you to being able to live a life full of purpose and authenticity. So the skill I want you to practice today is going to be write down all the things you love about yourself. One of the things for people that they struggle with, if you really struggle with self-love, don't ask yourself the question, what do I love about myself? Ask yourself the question, what can I love about myself? it's like a little bit of a mind trick, right? That the ego is like, what do I love about myself? I don't really love anything about myself. But then when you say, what can I love about myself? You're giving your mind an opportunity to play with creativity. What can I find, right? And it becomes like this hunt where you're looking for the things that you can love about yourself. So play around with those two questions. What do I love about myself and what can I love about myself, and see what comes up. And then again, as they come up, affirm them. Sit with them. Be like, yeah, I love this about myself. This feels good. And like feel into the energy of your body. The affirmation, hand on heart, big breath or a couple breaths, whatever you got to do, get yourself release tension and get yourself grounded. And we're going to say, I am worthy of embodying and living the truest expression of who I am. Love that one. And then I do want to share a quick quote from my book. So what I've done in my book is I've talked about my surrender experiment. So this is when I left Calgary to move to overseas. I've been spending the last 7 months here. I'm actually in Vietnam right now, but I was in Chiang Mai, Thailand, and lived there for a couple months, 3 months, and then I had these crazy, like, I call it my surrender experiment. I left, basically just put all my stuff in storage and left with 3 bags, and have been living abroad. And for me, that's a big deal because I'm like a control freak. I like things a certain way. I like having my house. I had to leave my cat and my family and all sorts of stuff. So it was very overwhelming for me, but it was huge. And so I talk about that, but I'm just going to kind of read the last paragraph or two of my surrender experiment section in the book. So, surrendering my mind to my body has been a huge part of this shift for me. For many years, my mind was a dictator to my body, bossing it around and telling it what to do and when to do it. My mind was using the fear of shame to motivate my body to perform so it didn't have to experience the shame. As I began to be more in tune to the language of my body, I began to experience more love for myself. I realized within 1 week of my adventure that I simply cannot invite adventure into my life without surrendering control. Adventure is all about letting go of control and allowing the spontaneity of life to guide you with your sense of wonder leading the way. In the first few weeks of my adventure, I shed my fair share of tears, and I realized it was me grieving the time I lost living such a rigid and controlled life. I treated myself like a slave to the avoidance of shame through perfectionism. I was and still can be really mean to myself. The difference now is I see the trap for what it is, and I know how to avoid falling into it. If I catch myself being mean to myself, I gently ask myself, how can I be more gentle with myself right now? Am I putting too much on my plate? Do I need to take a nap? Do I need to call a friend and have them provide with me some objectivity? Do I need to go to a yoga class and move from my head into my heart? Do I need to be held by someone who gets me? So the reason why I want to finish off with that is because self-ownership can't be possible without self-compassion. Okay, we first surrender, and then from a place of surrender, we practice compassion for ourselves. And compassion, self-care, allowance, all of these terms I'm using, they're all the same thing. They're just different flavors of this and expressions of the same principles that I'm speaking of. And self-compassion for me has been one of the best ways for me to be able to own myself and heal shame and heal perfectionism, because I've been able to embrace who I am with compassion. Be there for yourself. Be gentle, right? Why do we need to be so hard on ourselves? Because when we're hard on ourselves, we're never going to own the truth of who we are, because we're never going to make it from our head down into our heart. If we're using resistance and shame, right? We need self-compassion and allowance to move from here into here, so we can start to embody and embrace exactly the truth of who we are. So I'm going to leave you guys with that one. I really hope that you've enjoyed this 7 days to a more authentic you, embodying your truth. If you have, feel free to reach out. Let me know, the impact this has had on you. Seven days, you can do a lot of great work in 7 days and just cultivate lots of awareness. So I'd love to hear from you and how this has been for you. And if you're interested in doing any sort of further self-development work, coaching, I offer a ton of great services. You can check out my website, mattlansettle.com. And thank you again for being such an awesome patron of my work and supporting me. Love you all, and peace out. Mhm.